everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. It's Shalini. So this week is the last week of 2020. It finally came. This has been the longest years. It's felt like several years. This year has been absolutely wild all around the world. From politics to fires to the pandemic to protests and much more. We've all been through a lot this year. We live in a datafied world, and with everything that has happened this year, there has been a lot of data generated. Let's take a look back at 2020 and look at some cool data visualizations that represented the year. So probably the biggest thing that happened for all of us all around the world was the spread of COVID-19. All of a sudden, we started hearing the words social distancing and quarantine a whole lot more. This first visualization from Reuters uses location data from millions of smartphones in America to show how travel habits changed during the first few weeks of the pandemic back in March. This is an interesting visualization because we can see how suddenly things changed, but also how the response to the pandemic wasn't uniform across different areas of the country. Based on demographic and social differences between people, traveling habits were also quite different. I think this is really cool, just looking at the early days of the pandemic, seeing the different responses across the country, and also trying to understand how we could have done better. So this visualization is from earlier in the year, so one thing that I think would be cool to add on is more data. So looking at how traveling habits changed throughout the year. This information has potential to understand what motivates people to shelter in place or not, and could predict hotspot locations based on where people are moving around. So with the pandemic and shelter in place happening, we found things to do. This next visualization shows media consumption by generation and how COVID-19 affected it. The data is from April and it compares boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. Looking at the different mind plots, we see that for Gen Z, around half are watching more online videos than before the pandemic. Millennials started watching online videos, online TV, and broadcast TV more. Gen X started watching more broadcast TV and online TV. And boomers mostly started watching more broadcast TV. It seems that with the pandemic, a lot more people across all generations are sitting on their sofa and watching TV. I thought this plot was pretty cool. I think it's easy to understand regardless of if you have a data background, and it compares the trends across different generations. I personally have been watching a lot more online videos and streaming more in general, and I think collectively all of us have been doing very similar things to adjust to the new norm of living in this pandemic. Going into May and June, there was an outpouring of anger at how Black people were being treated by the police, and a lot of the racial injustices in our society were brought to light with the Black Lives Matter movement. There are many charts and visualizations that were created in previous years and also this year, and all of them show how data can be used as a tool to fight for change. So this visualization from mappingpoliceviolence.org was pretty shocking to me the first time I saw it. As of November of this year, in 2020, there have only been 17 days where the police did not kill someone. This chart is dominated by red, which represents 3 or more killings every single day. On top of that, Black people are more likely to be killed by the police. It's not about crime rates either, as we can see from this chart. There's no trend between violent crime and the rates of police violence. There is just no excuse for police violence, and there is no accountability for police officers either. The Black Lives Matter movement goes deeper than police violence and this visualization. There is a lot of systemic racism in our society. This visualization from The Economist shows one area of our society, specifically diversity in tech fields. This is something I've noticed and heard about, especially since I've worked in the tech industry. And there are many factors that affect how the Black community gets into tech roles and leadership positions. The tech industry is notoriously known for its lack of diversity, but it is something that all of us need to recognize, and we all need to advocate for change. The products that tech companies are building are for diverse consumers. The workplace and the teams that are within the tech industry should also be just as diverse. There are a lot of other visualizations and resources that I recommend reading, which helped me understand more about the history of the movement and the different areas of life that it affects. TikToks. I'll link them all down below. It is something that was all over social media for a few months, but it is still important to keep up the momentum and amplify Black voices, and hopefully this is something that people will continue to do going forward. Moving to the fall months, wildfires broke out all across California, leading to orange skies and unhealthy air quality. Around that time, I found this visualization from Flowing Data, which showed the size of the California wildfires over the past few years, as well as this graph from Axios in 2017, which shows the size and the length of time the wildfires burned for. I think it's really cool to visualize all the wildfires on a single page. That way you can compare and see the trends from year to year. Unfortunately, it does show that wildfires are burning longer and hotter each year, as we can see from the size of the squares in the first graph and the color and size of the triangles in the second one. I've personally noticed this too, being at UC Berkeley for the past few years. Each year I was in college, the wildfires kept getting worse and worse, to the point where school was canceled because it was too unsafe to walk to class. This year seemed to be the worst though. It lasted a lot longer than what I remember, and it burned through so many more acres. Each fire season is getting worse and worse because of climate change, making areas more drier and warmer. Besides being prepared for situations like this and potential evacuations, we all need to do better and do our part in slowing down climate change. As fall continued, the US election picked up, and with it came a bunch of data and a lot of US map visualizations. There are a ton of interesting visualizations related to the election based on demographics, policies, political party, and other breakdowns. A lot of times with the data, a US map is used and huge portions of the country are shaded, when in reality they're just mostly land with very few people there. I saw this visualization which solves that issue and instead shows counties as circles with their sizes proportional to the number of votes. Land doesn't vote, but people vote. Both types of maps show very different stories. One is based on land and one is based on people. This visualization is a very simple idea but very powerful. And this one video shows how tricky visualizations can be and how data can be used to mislead people. I think this really shows the power of data, for good and for bad. Data can definitely be used to mislead people. I've seen so many charts where one small thing is tweaked to show one idea when really the opposite is true. With living through this age of fake news and misleading information, anyone digesting this information and looking at these charts should look at everything and ask where the data came from, what it's trying to represent, and if it is actually representing that. I think there's a greater need for data literacy for everyone because data is all around us and it is very, very easy to mess with people based on wrong facts and data. The last thing I'll share today is something that has been on my social media feed for all of December. It's Spotify 2020 Wrapped. So Spotify Wrapped is a feature that Spotify has at the end of the year so you can deep dive and see how you listen throughout the year. They're telling you how much you listened during the year and who your top artists, songs, genres, and podcasts were. So Spotify has been doing this for several years now, but each year I've seen it get more and more popular. I think this is a really, really cool visualization and usage of data in general. Part of what makes it so great is how simple it is. It really shows that data doesn't have to be this complicated mess. Sometimes the best data is the simple data. All they're doing is summarizing your personal experience on Spotify, whether it's listening to music or podcasts, and creating a story behind it. The data is easy to understand and the feature is easy to use, and the whole thing is a great example of data storytelling. Overall, I think it's a really, really great feature using data. And that brings us to the end of the year. 2020 was a packed year, and it was an uncomfortable year in many ways. But I think it taught us a lot and it forced us to grow and change. It wasn't the year I expected and it didn't go the way I planned at all, but I'm really grateful for everything I've learned from all the good and bad things that this year brought. There are definitely a lot of events that happened this year that I didn't get to cover, but let me know if you have a cool visualization that you saw from this year in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you all in 2021. Bye!